Welcome in, everyone, to the It's Official podcast. He's Jeff Siegel. I'm Jeremy Plonk. Summer winding down. It's closing weekend at Saratoga. It is Labor Day weekend to come, but it is the opening at Kentucky Downs this Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday. A big weekend at Del Mar, Pacific Classic this Saturday. In fact, Tuesday, as we do our podcast each and every week, it is draw day for the Pacific Classic out there on the West Coast. Jeff Siegel doing this podcast in flip-flops, no doubt, Jeff.
Yeah, no, I'm laid back today, although I'm busy because the draw for the Pacific Classic is today. It's the only race that they're drawing for Saturday. Adair Manor is going to be the favorite. I can tell you that. I have inside information on that one. And I tell you what, I was going to make her favorite anyway, but on form, she looks pretty darn good. And I mean, if you want to really have a treat, take a time to watch her. Go to xptv.com and take a look at her last breeze. They gave her 12 and change. I got her galloping out 7/8 and 24 and 4. I've never seen a better work from her. And she does look like a long rangy filly that will go a mile and a quarter. Some of the others I'm not so sure of. So we will see what happens there. Originally, Bob Baffert was going to run Muth, but he's going to wait until Shared Belief, a little easier spot. So that comes up this weekend, and other good races as well. But we had a fantastic weekend last week, and doesn't always happen, but the Travers certainly lived up to the billing.
Record handle, great crowd, national TV audience, and a race, like you said, that lived up to it. Not only an excellent finish, but the two marquee horses in the race both brought their game, and we got that in the Travers Stakes. We go to our first of 5 topics this week. We will discuss that Travers Stakes, our postmortem, and we'll look at how these 3-year-olds may rank and stack up against each other now that we are almost into the month of September. Back to Saratoga we go. Frank Miramati on the mic for Saturday's Travers Stakes. 2-year-old champion Fierceness, the Kentucky Oaks winner, the Kentucky Oaks winner Torpedo Anna. They squared off throughout the running in the stretch, and it was an outstanding finish.
In 1:11 and 3, they're at the top of the stretch, and Fierceness takes command. Sierra Leone is coming with his run on the outside of Torpedo Anna, who's currently second. They're in the final furlong. Johnny V asking Fierceness for everything he has. 3-length lead. Torpedo Anna running her heart out and coming with every stride. Fierceness, Torpedo Anna in an absolutely dramatic conclusion. The champ is back. Fierceness holds off a gallant Torpedo Anna to win the DraftKings Travers. Sierra Leone was third.
This is the Fierceness that we expected after the Florida Derby when he just romped. Who knows? I mean, as we go back and look at history, the outlying race just might be what the heck happened on Kentucky Derby Day, because Fierceness now, Jim Dandy winner, Travers winner, Florida Derby winner. He's had a hell of a season. He just had one really bad 2 minutes in Louisville.
Yeah, and you talk about coming back. Well, of course, he had won his previous race, the Jim Dandy, so he didn't have to come back too far from that race. But the fact is that while he may be back better than ever, because that was a career top buyer number, 111 buyer number, and he's now got a chance to not only be champion 3-year-old, but it could be horse of the year, maybe. I don't know. I mean, the way things shake out this way, I don't think I know they're not running him to the Breeders' Cup Classic, but if he were to go out and beat City of Troy and the others in that race, which looks pretty tough at the top, I'll tell you that, then who knows? It's funny. Last week when we handicapped this race, I picked Torpedo Anna, and she ran as well. No, she ran better than I thought she would have had to have run to win the race. She just got beat. I didn't want to knock anybody in the race because I said top to bottom a chance virtually, and then I step out of my lane and made a reference to Fierceness, not expecting him to run that well. So the one horse that I knocked won, which is kind of like the way I thought it was going to be anyway. I didn't really have a real great feel for it.
No, I didn't either.
Torpedo Anna, and again, you cannot run any better in defeat than she did.
The one thing about that race, we talked about it in our handicapping show, was just try to find the best horse in the race at the best value, right? Who are they letting go? Because there were 4 really good options in that Travers Stakes, maybe even a 5th with some class risers to discuss, but $9 plus on Fierceness, that wasn't too shabby. So when you're looking for the value play, just might have went to the winner in there. It was a smart investment if you were backing Fierceness. Now, we have a champion in the Travers Stakes, but he wasn't a horse who won the Triple Crown Series. So 3 different Triple Crown race winners, of course, Mystic Dan, Seize the Gray, and then Dornoch winning the Belmont Stakes. Dornoch did get a double when he came back and won the Haskell amongst the semi-majors, but certainly the Travers is the 4th major among the 3-year-olds, and it went to Fierceness. So essentially the 4 majors went to 4 different horses. How do we look at this 3-year-old crop now? How do they stack up and rank against each other? Of course, in the springtime, I was doing my countdown to the Crown Series from the first Friday in January all the way through the Belmont Stakes. Here's the way Countdown to the Crown looked after the Derby preps. This is before the Kentucky Derby. I had Fierceness number 1 off his Florida Derby, Sierra Leone number 2 off of his Bluegrass, Resilience off his Wood Memorial number 3, Forever Young from Japan via the UAE Derby. I had him at 4, and Catching Freedom from Louisiana, I had number 5 for Brad Cox. Again, that was then. Now go to the right side of the page, and now post-Travers, how have things changed? Not that much, honestly. Fierceness still number 1 after winning the Travers Stakes. I think Forever Young, with his second by a nose defeat in the Kentucky Derby, he has not run since then. But I think it has stacked up well, and I just think he's just a tremendous horse who's got all the ability in the world to potentially win the Breeders' Cup Classic. Sierra Leone, I've got him in 3rd. He's had a solid season throughout. Dornoch in at 4 for me, and then Mindframe, the horse who was second to Dornoch in the Belmont and in the Haskell, I've got in at number 5. Of course, Mindframe's finished for the season. Also done for the season is Mystic Dan. You mentioned Muth. He's kind of been slow to get back to the races. He won the Arkansas Derby. Maybe we see him this weekend at Del Mar. Domestic Product, the sprinter, has gotten really good since turning back in the Dwyer and in the Jerkins this past weekend. Parroting is 3 for 3 for Bob Baffert, but he's not heading to any big races anytime soon. And of course, Seize the Gay won the Pate Mayo and the Preakness. We'll see him again, probably Pennsylvania Derby. But he's got to make another big statement in order to kind of get up there towards those top horses, Jeff. How do you see the top of this class?
Well, I think you've got it pretty nailed there. Fierceness, Forever Young, until such time as we see him run poorly, but he never has. Right. And then, of course, Sierra Leone, who, and I wanted to ask you about him, because are we losing faith in him, or is he just getting outrun by better horses?
Well, he's never run a bad race, right? And if we want to say he's the 2nd or 3rd best 3-year-old in this crop, what's wrong with that, right? When he wasn't up against Fierceness, when he wasn't up in the big league races like the Derby, Belmont, he's run really well. And when he gets anybody who's off of that top list, he wins the Bluegrass, he wins the races in Louisiana. This is a top class horse. So he is just running into some horses who are a little bit better and a little more brilliant. And in American dirt racing, brilliant horses are going to win most of the time, right? I mean, you just don't give 10, 12 lengths to good competition and beat them all the time. You can beat lesser competition with that kind of style. That's what makes Zenyatta so remarkable, is she gave the competition that kind of advantage and was able to come and get all of them, except when she ran up against a Blame. And then she ran a race similar to what we see with Sierra Leone, which is good, but not quite good enough when you meet an elite horse who's brilliant. I think that's the situation with Sierra Leone. If he gets the right field, he's going to beat them. He's always going to run his race. If he were to come back in the Breeders' Cup Classic, you definitely want him in your superfecta. He may not win it because chances are at elite levels, somebody's going to run a brilliant race. They're not all going to be off. And I think that's probably what he's going to run into. Is he a great racehorse? No. Is he very, very good? Yes. Is he a top 3 horse in this crop? I think absolutely. I think he's proven it over time.
Well, of course, the only issue there is that he's been beaten now 3 straight times as the favorite. So sure, there are those who will say that, he's good, but he's not as good as what we thought he might be or had the potential to be. One thing I wanted to notice about a note about Dornoch, who was 4th in this race, who would have probably most likely would have clinched champion 3-year-old.
Yeah, he would have.
Because he had won it, both the Haskell and the Belmont. If he'd won this, the Travers, that would have been a resume that would be hard to top. But Danny Gargan said, well, he had 2 hard races in a row, and he probably may not have been up to that. That's one way of looking at his disappointing 4th in the Travers. The other way to look at it is that his career top buyer number was 103. This race was a 111. Maybe he wasn't fast enough to win.
Right.
He ran his race, and They just have a higher ceiling than he does. That's the problem. And so, but it's a good, strong crop. The only thing it lacks is a leader or a clear-cut leader. At least that's the case until for Fierceness. The other thing I want to say about Fierceness is he ran really well in his last 2 races. I'm not even trying to take anything off those 2 wins. But both times he had the outside post, both times he was outside in the clear, both times he was able to move when he wanted to move. They are what I call pristine trips, and good for him that he was able to take advantage of it. But he didn't have to overcome any adversity, but he still ran well. You know what I'm saying? So what if he draws the 3-hole in the Classic on a 12-horse field? I don't know what we're going to do with him there. But until that happens, all I'm trying to say is he's still in a position of having to keep proving himself until he doesn't. And then that's what makes the year end so interesting. We still aren't quite sure what we're going to get with Fierceness, but right now we know the natural talent is there, and he'll be among the big shooters in the Breeders' Cup Classic now.
He's carried it from 2 to 3 a full year since a smashing win at Saratoga to start off his career. So he's made it 12 full months as really one of the leaders, if not the leader in that division. Is he as dominant as the Florida Derby? That might have had something to do with the competition, but that was a visually impressive race. No. I don't think he's ever run as great as he did on Florida Derby Day, even in this particular race, because the leg action, he was up and down. This was a 1.25 miles. I think he could be more brilliant in a 1 1/8 miles like he was on Florida Derby Day. Visually, this come home, Torpedo Anna looked better coming down the stretch. I mean, she had a much better stride. He was up and down and just kind of getting there. That may or may not work in the Breeders' Cup Classic. We'll find out. I don't think 1.25 miles is his absolute best distance, but what horse is, right? 1.25 miles is kind of the pinnacle of dirt racing in America for most of these brilliant horses. And that's why we usually see something so like eye-popping in the Whitney every year, because it's 1.5 miles, 1.25 miles. And when we get to the Pegasus World Cup, that race is usually something really brilliant and eye-popping as well, because that's where these horses probably excel at the top end of American dirt racing nowadays. I think Fierceness is in that same category. What about Torpedo Anna, Jeff? Let's talk about her quickly. I didn't put her in the ranking because I'm talking 3-year-old colts, but obviously she's number 2 on the list, and you could argue she's number 1 off the Kentucky Oaks, the Coaching Club Oaks, and missing just by a zot there against Fierceness. If you want to say come back head-to-head at 1.5 miles, you like her more than Fierceness, I don't think anybody can really make a huge argument with that after seeing how well she ran there, and she's got quite a resume about her throughout the course of the whole season. Your thoughts? It looks like Kenny McPeak is going Breeders' Cup Distaff with her. He's talking about running back in the Cotillion one more time with a 4-week gap from that race. Travers, Cotillion, then to the Breeders' Cup Distaff. I'm not so sure you want to squeeze another race in between with her, with the campaign that she's had, and that being such a hard race. Obviously, she'll be 1 to 5 in the Cotillion, but I don't know if I want to run her again in late September at Parks.
I don't think she needs it. I mean, it's a money grab, and that's fine. If you want to boost your earnings, and let's face it, fillies and then older fillies, they don't have that many opportunities to run for that kind of money. Yeah. But I think when you have a horse as good as Torpedo Anna, I mean, what's the money? I mean, you know what I'm saying? I mean, you've already got, if you own her, you got enough of it. But if she runs in that race, he feels that I'm going to have to train her hard anyway. So we might have an easier run in that race than you'd expect. I don't know if anybody would even enter to even try to win it. They'd probably all be trying to run second. So if he feels she needs it, fine. She looks like she's a pretty durable filly. She's never run a bad race. So whatever happens. But my hat's off to her. I was rooting for her, not even as a gambler or anything like that. I just thought she deserved the prestige of winning the Travers for the first time at since 1915 for a filly. So I thought she deserved that just because she tried so hard, and she really ran well. All right, I just hope they all show up healthy and sound. We have a makings of a Breeders' Cup for the ages, not just only the Classic, but all the other undercard races as well. Yeah. So, and the Europeans will be here. So, whatever the case is, my hat's off to her. And again, it was a great race, a deserving Grade 1 Travers. Sometimes the race falls flat. This one certainly did not do that.
And Todd Pletcher was in the canoe paddling around on Sunday morning in the infield at Saratoga. So it was a big win for Fierceness, a great validation for the incredible form of the runner-up in there, Torpedo Anna. We go to our second topic on It's Official this week. After seeing what we've seen in the Travers, we saw the Whitney a couple weeks ago with Arthur's Ride. Is City of Troy, the horse from England, the favorite for this year's Breeders' Cup Classic? Of course, he won the Epsom Derby earlier this year. Then he took on older horses a week or so ago in the Juddmonte International and maybe cemented his spot as the top horse for this year's Classic. We'll show fans that race, and Jeff and I will take a look at some anti-post odds from international books and discuss City of Troy.
City of Troy still grinding it out in front here for Royal Rhyme on the outside. Down the centre, here comes Calandagan. City of Troy really putting in the afterburners now, though, as they race up towards the final furlong. He leads by about a length and a half. Calandagan trying hard to rein him in. Back in third place is Ghostwriter. City of Troy having to dig really deep here as they race inside the final furlong. He's made every yard so far, and City of Troy, what a game performance all the way in the City of York in the Juddmonte. Calandagan second.
And off that victory, and of course his Epsom Derby, among other races, oddschecker.com, which is kind of a conglomerate of all the international bookmaking markets online, has City of Troy as the current favorite for the Breeders' Cup Classic at 7-2, offering right now internationally with the books. Fierceness, this is updated from this morning, so it's after what we saw in the Travers Stakes. Fierceness now the 6-1 second choice. Arthur's Ride, the horse who won, we said just a minute ago, the horse who won the Whitney at Saratoga. He's at 10. Forever Young from Japan is at 10. He's got to prep before he comes over. Sierra Leone settles in at 12 off the effort in the Travers. Torpedo Anna, unlikely to go in the Breeders' Cup Classic, and that's why you get a bigger number on her, because she's not likely to run in the Classic, headed towards the distaff. And then you've got some others at longer prices in there, Jeff, including Dornoch at 20-1. Your thoughts? Is City of Troy the favorite for this year's Classic?
Well, first of all, I have to ask you, since I don't know the answer, but the odds that we refer to on Breeders' Cup Day on the turf, on the tote, okay, does that reflect Japanese money, or is that something that's a different pool somewhere else? Do you know
separate pool?
It is a separate pool. So, right. Okay. Because I thought if Forever Young comes up and wins his prep and then shows up here, I might have to, tilt the odds a little way if the money from Japan shows up in this particular pool. But, I really I need all the input I can get on this, because as good as City of Troy is, he's coming halfway around the world. He's never been on dirt, even though he's by Justify, so why wouldn't he like it? That race that we just saw, to put it in context, he broke the course record at York, and he broke it by almost a full second. And the horse that had held it was no less a horse than See the Stars, who was
Who's
a
that
superstar in his day. I mean, he was as good as they come in the last 25 years. So,
right.
And he's got such a beautiful athletic stride. I can't imagine him not handling dirt. They're going to train him up to the race for what I understand. They'll even breeze him over an all-weather surface, a left-handed all-weather surface at Dundalk, which simulates Del Mar. He's such a versatile horse. He can win from last. He can win on the lead. He's going to be a hard horse to judge here. I mean, I hope we get some video of him working out or breezing, because we're going to need to know what kind of shape he's in when he shows up. We've seen some of the European horses come over and reproduce their form. I remember Giants Causeway coming over here and running so well in his Breeders' Cup race, and I guess that was year 2000. But then we've seen others that have come over and flopped really, really badly. So Dancing Brave, of course, he was a turf horse, but he was far behind. He was supposed to be all century and got beat. So anyway, I just hope that, again, we that horse, City of Troy, as great as he is, and Aiden says he's the best horse he's ever trained. So that's good to know. We'll see how if he shows up and how he performs, and it'll make that classic truly a world classic, which is what we want to see.
We know he's a 1.25 mile plus horse. That is in his column, right?
Yeah.
And so while you may not know if he's a dirt horse, you know the distance is not going to be an issue. Where we talked about like fierceness was kind of up and down in the stretch, getting home in the Travers Stakes. Arthur's Ride, a brilliant shorter horse. He's never been anywhere near the 1.25 mile. Maybe we get to see him in the Jockey Club Gold Cup this weekend and prove what he could possibly do at a 1.25 mile. But you've got the distance box checked. He's by Justify. You would assume he can handle some dirt. He hasn't obviously raced over it. The fact that he went right to the front in the Juddmonte International, which is not his running style, but I think they wanted to see how he would do leading the way over a 1.25 mile, because you got to be up into the mix to run in the Breeders' Cup Classic. You're not going to get all that dirt kicked back on your face for a 1.25 mile and close into that and beat brilliant American horses. We talked about Sierra Leone trying to overcome the same kind of thing. And if you're not experienced taking the dirt at all, it wouldn't be a good thing. So the fact that he has shown the ability to pace himself a little bit and get up into the race, we know he can stay a 1.25 mile. He's bred for the dirt by Justify. There's a lot of reasons to like him. Does that make him the favorite? Not if there's a superstar in the States. That question would be, who's that going to be? I mean, if Arthur's Ride goes out and wins a Jockey Club Gold Cup by 10, maybe he's kind of last year's White Barrio and everybody's all excited about him. But, White Barrio wasn't like, 8-5 in the Breeders' Cup either, So there's going to be another show me factor even for Arthur's Ride if he wins next time out in the Jockey Club Gold Cup. So it would basically come down to fierceness versus City of Troy for favoritism. So can you say that City of Troy will be the favorite in the Breeders' Cup? I think it's a 50-50 call, so I think it's very obvious you can
close. One thing I want to say, Jeremy, though, is keep this in mind, and if you're handicapping the 1.25 mile and thinking that's a factor, nowhere in this world do I know a track in which horses who can't get a 1.25 mile get it at Del Mar.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember Beholder winning the Classic, and she was basically a sprinter middle distance miler.
Yeah.
And she won that race like it was nothing. And we've seen a lot of horses under normal circumstances, even like at Saratoga or somewhere else, you'd really be worried about it. If you have any doubts about any of these horses getting a 1.25 mile, if they're ever going to get it, it'll be at Del Mar. So that's why it's a fast track. You're right about the deep closers. They are really going to be up against it, especially this year when the track has been pro speed. Not like it has been for the last 20 years or so. I don't know what they did to it, but it's different now. And, it's going to make for – no one's should be waiting around for anybody. This is going to be a fast early, fast middle, and fast late classic, and it's really going to be a test of who can take that heat and find more under pressure.
One other name, possible favoritism for the Classic, not ruled out there, would be Forever Young. If he runs off the screen in his final prep in Japan, there's a lot of momentum for that horse. A lot of people liked him going into the Derby. They remember him getting shoved all around in the stretch of the Derby, or he probably wins that day. He wins by 5 or 6 in Japan in that one prep that he's got left. Comes over here, trains. Everybody loves to watch these international horses in the morning. I could possibly see him ended up favorite in the Breeders' Cup Classic as well. Yeah. Not out of the question, but there's still a few things that have to happen in order for that to be the case. For his
That's why no matter how good City of Troy looks or any of these horses, there is contention. There's about at least 5 or 6 horses that will take money. It's not like you're going to have a 3-5 and a second choice at 8-1 or something. I mean, they're going to be bunched, So again, a great gambling race and a classic that I cannot wait for. But more importantly than that, is our next topic, because my month, my week, my year might be made. You're telling me there's an actual chance for my horse to run in here? Not my horse. Well, sort of my horse, emotionally anyway. Did you read that story in the Blood Horse about Next?
Next, the marathoner who might just get himself into the Breeders' Cup after running in the Greenwood Cup coming up in a couple weeks at Parks on Pennsylvania Derby Day. He's dominated the turf marathon scene. We've known that. He's just winning everything by daylight. Trainer Doug Callens has mentioned, look, the timing looks good. The owners are kind of interested in the Breeders' Cup to go from the Greenwood Cup, 1.75 miles that race, and turning back a 1.5 miles, I believe, the Greenwood Cup, and then turning back to something on dirt, maybe the Classic, or maybe to the Breeders' Cup turf. There was talk a while ago saying, if we do run this horse, out of the marathon division, it is more likely it would happen on the grass than it would be on the dirt. Now, that wasn't talking specifically to the Breeders' Cup, but now that we have the Breeders' Cup, timing is something that they're interested in. Now, you do bring the Breeders' Cup turf, and a race that was named specifically as a possibility. Breeders' Cup turf, Breeders' Cup Classic. Now, if Next were to show up in the Breeders' Cup Classic, we didn't talk about him as the potential favorites, and they're really not even taking play on him in Europe at this time on Odds Checker. He's a big price over there. He suddenly becomes into that discussion, right? He wins another race by 20 lengths. That's going to look pretty damn good in the past performances when you show up at Del Mar, and he's going to get play in a Breeders' Cup Classic. In a Breeders' Cup Turf, I think that's a whole different ball game. I'm like a little leery of him taking on top international horses at 1.5 miles on the turf, but I kind of like him better in the Classic if they were to go that direction.
I just hope he shows up and runs. That's all. Yeah. Whatever race he wants is fine with me, because in talking about him after his previous race, they didn't even look at the Jockey Club Gold Cup or the Pacific Classic. I thought the Breeders' Cup, whatever, would be farthest from their mind. They never mentioned it. Now all of a sudden it's like, oh, hell yeah, why not? And
they must be watching It's Official, Jeff, because we have been begging them all season to take a bite out of this apple.
He can run the distance, whatever distance it is. His numbers are powerful. He's never even taken a deep breath. He's a versatile horse for sure. He can handle any surface. The timing in between his race at Parks and the next one is 7 weeks, which the trainer says is ideal for him. And I don't know. I mean, why not go for the gold and go from there? He would really, not that the Breeders' Cup program needs a horse like that, but it certainly would feel complete if he was participating in it. And, he's going to win the next one by the length of the grandstand, or as far as they want him to. They'll let him run they have to run him a little bit, ask him a little bit. But, I mean, it's just a matter of, how far and how fast and how easily he does it. If he does it like he did it at Saratoga earlier this meeting, I don't think anybody on earth can beat him going 1.5 miles.
Frome with a 3-length lead over Mask Parade. They're at the top of the stretch. And this is Next World. He is all alone, just strolling through. Let him hear it from the crowd, ladies and gentlemen. Next, winning the Birdstone. Once again, he will win by more than the 12 he's accustomed to. Next gallops.
And you mentioned the Breeders' Cup doesn't need Next, but it's kind of like the Major League All-Star Game.
Yes.
Paul Skeens was like the hot name this year, right? Rookie of the year, the hot kid out of LSU had won a national title, meteoric rise up through the minor leagues. It made the All-Star Game better, making him the starting pitcher, right? And it was kind of cool. And Ohtani as a great hitter, but when he got the start a couple of years ago as a starting pitcher in the All-Star Game, that's extra juice, right? That extra star power. It was going to be a great game either way, but then you make that little extra twist. Ohtani on the mound, Paul Skeens on the mound as a rookie getting the start. It just makes it a little more interesting, and I think that's what Next would do for this.
I mean, forget about the 3-year-olds. What about City of Troy versus Next?
There you go.
And who knows? They might neither one of them might be favored. I don't know. We'll see. Right. But I mean, it's just exciting. I'm just glad that they have seen the light and now will give this horse a chance to be immortal and or legendary. And all eyes will be at Parks. What's that? The 3rd week of September. I think that would be kind of fun to watch. So anyway, good for them. And let's hope that he can make it. But there is a chance. There was no chance about a month ago. So this is good news.
All right, we're excited. Let's talk more Breeders' Cup. As we go through our Breeders' Cup tracker, we talk some marathon horses who may go turf, may go classic. A lot of classic talk at the top of the show, but there were Breeders' Cup races important throughout the divisions last week. We're going to look specifically at some video from the Sprint, the Filly and Mare Sprint, and the Distaff divisions. And also there's a little bit of news out of the Dirt Mile division as well. So let's start things off in the Sprint division, where it was Raging Torrent in the Pat O'Brien pulling the upset. The Chosen Vron looked unbeatable. but he was beaten on Saturday.
The Chosen Vron now breathing down his neck in second, and the Chosen Vron goes looking for the lead at the quarter pole. Raging Torrent running up, Brave One trying to come back. Senor Buscador's far back, but he is running on. They are homeward bound now, and the Chosen Vron on the outside, but Raging Torrent is all heart. He won't go away. He's coming right back at him. Raging Torrent and the Chosen Vron. Raging Torrent, what a run from him. Raging Torrent beat the Chosen Vron. Back in third was Big City Lights, and then...
So how good is Raging Torrent? Was it an off day for the Chosen Vron? What do we make of the key prep on the West Coast so far towards the Breeders' Cup? They're going to run right back here at Del Mar in a couple months.
And they're going to run in the sprint. And the theory behind Raging Torrent running in the sprint is that he's tried 2 turns twice, and he didn't win either one of them. But here's the thing about Raging Torrent. He's bred to run long. He looks like a route horse. I personally would consider the mile with him. Now, most of the times you take a horse who's clearly better sprinting on than routing on form, and you figure, why do that? And we'll talk about domestic product in a second, but because he's in the same boat. But Doug O'Neill says, I'm going to keep him around 1 turn. But man, there's a good horse back east that I'm not sure he can outfoot. And we'll talk about him as well. Raging Torrent, I think, had excuses in both of his 2-turn races last year. One of which was in the American Pharoah, and he wasn't as good then as he is now. So I don't think the route beat him. I mean, he was running against some good horses, Muth and those kind. And the other one was Remington in the mud, and he wasn't right, and he didn't break, and he wasn't just. It doesn't indicate anything. But he ran 7/8 here, and he beat a horse, an unbeatable horse on the square. I'd love to see Raging Torrent utilize that natural speed that he has, going a mile at Del Mar, especially over a track that's speed paving, and just outrun everybody and win it like Golden Sense used to win.
Spun the run. Some of those horses that really just blitzed in a dirt mile. Yeah.
If you look at a colt that we're going to talk about in a minute, I don't know about running him back 3/4 because I don't think he's quick enough to do that. And so he won this race. The 104 by number is not right, but it's good. It's good enough, And so that's the plan, is to train him up to the sprint. I would, if it were mine, I would strongly consider the mile. I think he can make the lead going a mile. I'm not sure he can do that going 3/4. Now, what about the Chosen Vron?
What about?
He got beat at 50 cents on the dollar. He was a nickel on the dollar or 1 cent on the dollar at the quarter pole.
Yeah, I thought he was going right by.
He did not run his best race, but he wasn't that far removed from his best race. The 104 by number, that's what he'd been earning, somewhere in that vicinity, a little faster on occasion. I had heard a racetrack rumor, and I'm really loath to mention rumors, but I got this from 2 separate sources. Like if you were a reporter, Jeremy, you got a scoop on something. Your newspaper wouldn't let you print it. But if you got 2 different sources that don't even know each other, then you gotta investigate a little farther. And what I was told is that he almost got scratched the morning of the race. He was a little off behind, not bad, They didn't. One of the vets wanted to scratch him. The other vet said no. The head guy, whoever he might be, said, I think he's fine, and they let him run. And you don't want a horse like the Chosen Vron showing up on the vets list. He's too popular of a horse. Maybe the thinking was, well, he's always like that in the morning, but he's fine in the afternoon, which you could sort of make a case for. Sure. I don't think he was in any danger of getting hurt or anything like that, but he was probably not 100%. Maybe he was 95%. I don't know what the case is, but I kind of forgive him for a loss. I don't know why they ran him back this quick. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's a horse, though, that we are really going to have to watch train, leading up to the Breeders' Cup to see if there's anything that we can find that might prevent us from expecting him to run his best race.
Yeah, I mean, he was so dominant last time out in the Bing Crosby, and then you say come back a month later in the Pat O'Brien. Did he need to run in both? Could he have just laid off in the Bing Crosby and came out super fresh towards the Breeders' Cup? Now we're going to find out, right? They tried to squeeze a little bit on him and get 2 wins at the meet. Didn't work out for him in this particular case. We shall see. The Chosen Vron, of course, an alum of the Breeders' Cup sprint last year. probably better maybe this year than he was last year. And the competition may not be quite as strong in the sprint division as it was last year, but there are some names rising up through those sprint ranks that might say that they're ready to become amongst the favorites. And one of those happened in the Forgo when Mulligan has kind of really just burst on the scene here in the Breeders' Cup sprint ranks, and he looked really, really good winning the Forgo at the Spa.
Sport there at the top of the stretch, and Mulligan turns for home, full of run, 3-length lead. Gun Pilot tips out to try and get to him in second. They're in the final furlong, and Mulligan with powerful strides has built it up to 4. Gun Pilot is no match. Neither are any of the others. Mulligan outclasses them in the Forgo, wins it by almost 6 lengths. Gun Pilot was...
So, Jeff, what do we make of this when Mulligan is really good right now?
Here's the thing. His numbers have gone from 76 to 98 to 99 to 102. This race earned a 105.
Right.
At 1 point better than the Pat O'Brien. But he's almost, I won't say he's impossible to beat because he's lost, but he's still,
right.
No, he's won 5 out of 9 with 3 seconds. But he's a kind of horse going to the form that wherever he is at the quarter pole, he's farther in front at the wire. He's on a speed horse that kind of opens up and kind of hangs on, you know. Mm-hmm. His best work is always from the 8th pole to the wire.
Yeah.
And he's got enough quickness to always be in the first fray. He doesn't necessarily open up on you early, but he sits right there. And then he gives you that second move, that quarter pole to the wire blast. Lightly raced 4-year-old. Unless you can find somebody I'm forgetting, would he not be the favorite for the Breeders' Cup Sprint based on this race?
Yeah, right now. Yeah, I can't, you've got the great filly we'll talk about in a little bit, but I imagine she stays in the filly and mare sprint ranks to go 7/8 of a mile. Yeah, I think Mulligan's the favorite right now if you're talking Breeders' Cup Sprint. A lot of the big names from recent years have, passed the baton. You've got the Chosen Vron being beaten on the West Coast. If he had come in off the winning streak and had another 5-length open victory like he did in the Bing Crosby, you'd say he's the favorite for the Breeders' Cup Sprint. But yeah, I think right now Skelly hasn't continued his wild winning streak, right? He's been beaten a couple times since. So yeah, I think Mulligan the favorite right now in the Breeders' Cup Sprint. Another horse who won a big sprint race over the weekend, Jeff, was Domestic Product. He won the Jerkins, the H. Allen Jerkins Memorial at 7 furlongs at Saratoga on Saturday. He has looked really good. You showed his Dwyer on our Friday handicapping podcast, and that was as good a visual performance as we've seen all season long. I mean, really to the eye, that was awesome. I felt bad picking against him after watching that video another time or two. Domestic Product was good, very good again in winning the Jerkins on Saturday, but maybe dirt mile for him and not cutting back all the way to 6 furlongs.
That's the plan, according to Chad Brown. I don't know about him. It's an unfortunate situation with him because he deserves to be in a Breeders' Cup race. He just doesn't have one that really truly suits him. He's by that noted late running sprinter Practical Joke, and who can get a 2-turn horse, but he's more like Practical Joke than any horse I think I've seen them sire lately. His win 2 races back was a 1-turn race, and the race in the 7 going 7/8 of a mile was good. So I think that, let me get rid of this call. Sorry about that, folks. All right. Anyway, but I think
the trash can.
The situation with Domestic Product is I do think 6 furlongs might be a tad sharp for him, especially at Del Mar. But I wouldn't want to mess him up. I might be, if it were mine, and I had the thought about not even running in the Breeders' Cup. I mean, the Cigar Mile followed by Malibu. I mean, wouldn't that work?
Yeah, Malibu would be perfect. 7/8 of a mile just for 3-year-olds. Yeah, Cigar Mile Malibu for Domestic Product at the end of the season could really be a good path and not go to the Breeders' Cup with him. That's a good point. Another dirt mile news nugget for you. Last year, a horse who ran on the board in the dirt mile, Skippy Longstocking, returned to Charlestown to win the mile in an 8th Charlestown Classic $1 million race for the second year in a row. He has been campaigned about as smart as a horse has been campaigned over the last couple of years. He is hitting all the right spots and making as much money as possible. And he's a solid horse. Like we said, I think he was third in the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile last year. He's going to head back to the Dirt Mile as a contender in that one off his win at Charlestown in the Classic. Now we go to the Filly and Mare Sprint division, and this might be the fastest horse in America. She is really, really good. Sweet Azteca. She was 1-9 in the Rancho Bernardo on Sunday, and she looked even better than that coming home, I think.
Sweet Azteca has to go, does so willingly. And it's Sweet Azteca just gets a tap on the neck here from Flavian Pratt. And this one's pretty much all over. Sweet Azteca, just plain too good for them. Sweet Azteca, a scintillating performance. Kismosa might just get up for second. Anywho is right there. Close Anywho and Kismosa for the second spot.
115 and change for 6.5, and it looked like a morning gallop, Jeff. She just didn't even look like she was out of gear and won that race so easily. I don't know at 6 furlongs if she's not better than the boys. I mean, and we've seen her go long. She got the 2 turns in the 2-turn mile race. What, the Beholder Mile was it, where she was able to win going long, but she is brilliant, man. I don't know if I take anybody over her sprinting. She's got that, feel of the really good sprinters of the Fillies and Mares we've seen in recent years.
Yeah, I think, though, I'm pretty sure they're going to keep her in the Filly and Mare race. That's 7/8. Sure. All that means really is that she won't be subjected to a 21-1, 21-2 opening quarter going 7/8. Right. And she's a good gate filly. She pops out of the gate and she switches off. And then she's got that incredibly fast cruising speed where it doesn't even look like she's going fast. And that second quarter, she's going, 22 and change, and she's just breezing. And then she obviously can quicken. I mean, maybe her best race yet this year was her win against Adair Mana, 2 turning, right. So that's what she can do. I mean, 7/8 is right up her alley. Carried 126 pounds in this race. It was actually a handicap. I don't think they could have put enough weight on her to get her beat in this race, unless they wanted to go back and emulate Forgo or somebody. Yeah. But, I mean, she can run well fresh, only been beaten once, and that was off a layoff. She's special. And the other thing, of course, is she's got the proven winning form over the Breeders' Cup track at Del Mar, which could be a little quirky sometimes. So
right, and if they have to ship and go to east somewhere, or go to Kentucky for the Breeders' Cup, or somewhere around the country, you might have those question marks. But with her, they got to come to her, and to me, she looks as solid as any favorite in the division so far. As we look long range towards the Breeders' Cup, she is the one to beat to me, unequivocally, in the Filly and Mare Sprint division. The Distaff division, we've got Adair Manor running this weekend in the Pacific Classic against the boys. From the East Coast, the big prep for the Breeders' Cup Distaff at Saratoga was the personal entrant run this past weekend. We had a minor upset in that one as Raging Sea was able to wear down the favorite Idiomatic, who got a little leg weary late.
Sullivan Angel, they're at the top of the stretch, and it's Idiomatic. Randomized could not go with her today. Raging Sea is coming with a stellar bid in the center of the racetrack, has to get to Idiomatic. Idiomatic 3-length lead. Raging Sea is coming at her. Idiomatic trying to get there. Raging Sea and Flavian Pratt coming with each and every stride. And Raging Sea has become a millionaire with a dazzling performance running down Idiomatic in the personal ensign.
So what do we make of this? Now, Idiomatic, last year's champion older mare, winner of the Breeders' Cup Distaff. She had very few flaws in her game. This year, she's been beaten a couple of times. She's had some close finishes. She doesn't look dominant by any stretch. Florent Giroux just tried to break the race open. It was a fast pace, tried to break it open. The old Gary Stevens move, and Gary used to brag about that move, so that's not a negative, saying it's the Gary Stevens move. He tried to break a race open at the quarter pole, and that wins more often than not, but she just got emptied and had nothing left. Here's
the thing, though. You look at this race, obviously a quality race, Raging Sea, Idiomatic. It earned a 97 by her number at Saratoga, and the next day Torpedo Anna earned a 111, and that's who she's probably going to have to beat.
Yeah.
So at this stage of the game, Idiomatic is still a really top filly, no question about that, top mare. But she's no better, certainly this year, than she was last year, and she might have
Right.
lost a step or two. But you can't lose a step or two and expect to beat Torpedo Anna, or even Adair Manor for that matter. In the Breeders' Cup. So I'm not sure what they're going to do with her. I mean, obviously the plan would be to come if she were in good form. And Raging Sea, obviously a high-quality race mare herself, but the strength is elsewhere, I think, in that division at this stage of the game. But we still got some time to go, so we'll see what happens between now and then the first Saturday in November.
Interesting with the final preps for the Breeders' Cup. The two big ones that we'll still be looking at will be the Spinster at Keeneland, no Torpedo Anna there, and probably the Lady Secret out at Santa Anita with no Adair Manor there coming out of the Pacific Classic. So somebody else is going to announce their candidacy with a nice Grade 1 win, but you've got to get to those two. It looks like Adair Manor, Torpedo Anna, and then a little gap down to the Chad Brown runners and of course the returning champ in there, Idiomatic. Let's go to our final topic this week on It's Official, our Stars of Tomorrow segment. We've got a twofer for you. Jeff's got one. I've got one. Jeff went to Saratoga for his. It's Senza Parole, 2-year-old filly with an impressive victory at the Spa.
With a quarter of a mile to go, and Senza Parole comes wide into the stretch, but has the lead coming to the 8th pole and is traveling beautifully. Say hello to Senza Parole, who has a 7-length lead. Big future ahead for this daughter of Gun Runner. Senza Parole in a dramatic, impressive performance. Wow.
Jeff, in Italian, this means without words, speechless. Were you speechless after seeing it?
Pretty much. Let's you and I pool our money because her half-sister, a yearly half-sister by Good Magic, sells at Keeneland in about 3 weeks. Maybe we can get in the bidding there, and maybe
we'll pull our money. 95 you, 5 me.
For 40 or 50. Who knows? This filly is obviously, and being by Gun Runner, she shouldn't just be a sprinter. 109.4. That's moving at Saratoga, to be sure. Official margin 7 3/4 lengths for this Chad Brown trained filly, who was not even the favorite. I mean, she was second choice. There was another firster that was all the rage, a filly named Stunner, who actually ran well, just different level of competition that she saw. So, I mean, to me, Senza Senza Parole is a very, very good filly, and we'll follow her. I don't know how ambitious she's going to get or what they're going to get with her. I wouldn't rush her. You got too nice a filly to try to squeeze it in there, but that's a good way to start. And she was definitely not knocked about. So I think she's going to be a major player in the division.
And I go to Ellis Park for my Star of Tomorrow this week. The name is East Avenue in the Godolphin Blue for Brendan Walsh, who tied for leading trainer at this year's Ellis Park meet.
So it's all about East Avenue, who gets all of the attention to the quarter pole. Come and beat this one for the money. Pop Echo and Campaign Trail are pursuing this leader. Speechless is into fourth, and Exuberant Mischief and Raven's Dream. But it's all about East Avenue, living up to the hype to the 8th pole, working with better than 4 legs. Papa Echo is second. Campaign Trail still fighting for that bid, but it's time to roll out the red carpet for the royally bred East Avenue. Clearly superior from Papa Echo. Campaign Trail built in
East Avenue, a Medaglia d'Oro out of the half-sister to Cody's Wish. There's a lot of pedigree with this one. Tony Calo hinted at the royal pedigree. 8th-length winner at 6-5 in the debut. 110-2. The split division for this race went in 111-4 amongst these 2-year-old colts. I would highly suspect that we're going to see...
So it's all about East Avenue, who gets all of the attention to the quarter pole. Come and beat this one for the money. Pop Echo and Campaign Trail are pursuing this leader. Speechless is into fourth, and Exuberant Mischief.
I would expect that we're going to see this horse at Keeneland. He would be a really good horse for the Breeders' Futurity on the stretch out, a race that Godolphin supports over the years with a lot of their top 2-year-olds. Makes a lot of sense. So I'm expecting to see East Avenue, if healthy, coming out of this race. Good for Brendan Walsh to be maybe the favorite, one of the horses to beat for the Breeders' Futurity at Keeneland, and one to talk about for the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Division. So 2 of them in there, Senza Parole, 2-year-old filly, and then the 2-year-old colt East Avenue are Stars of Tomorrow this week. What do you say of that one, Jeff?
Nice. Again, you can find good horses anywhere, and whether it's Saratoga or Del Mar, Ellis Park, no matter where it is, it's always fun to find them, and then they go on to bigger and better things.
Right.
But based on his pedigree, there is no reason why he can't develop, and there's no reason why that's going to be just his best race of his career. I think he'll get better and better, as the filly should as well. I think you've got two future stars, future stakes winners there that we just looked at, and are stars of the future.
Let's take a look at this week's topics. We had our Travers postmortem and new rankings. Fierceness, the top of the 3-year-old division after winning the big one at the Spa, but nothing lost in defeat for the great filly Torpedo Anna. Is City of Troy the classic favorite? He is on oddschecker.com, looking at all the international books. Jeff and I think he could be favored. Also, horses like Fierceness, maybe Forever Young, maybe Arthur's Ride would be in that discussion, depending on what happens over the final prep for a few of those. So you're telling me there's a chance Jeff is excited because next, the star marathoner could be headed to the Breeders' Cup. They opened that door this weekend, potentially to a date in the Breeders' Cup Classic or the Breeders' Cup Turf, depending on what turns out in the Greenwood Cup at Parks in a couple weeks. Our Breeders' Cup tracker took you around the country. The defeat of the Chosen Vron by Raging Torrent in the sprint ranks. We also looked at Mulligan, a rising star sprinter from Saratoga. The Filly and Mare Sprint came into big-time focus with the victory in the Rancho Bernardo. And, of course, the defeat of Vava in the race at Saratoga. But the Rancho Bernardo win by Sweet Azteca makes her the star of the Filly and Mare Sprint division. And we looked at the distaff, where reigning champion Idiomatic was defeated by Raging Sea in the final strides of the Personal Ensign Stakes. Our stars of tomorrow: Senza Paroli, 2-year-old filly for Chad Brown out of Saratoga, and the 2-year-old colt East Avenue for Godolphin and Brendan Walsh, a big winner at Ellis Park. Those 5 topics are now official because Jeff Siegel and I said so. We're going to wrap up the podcast. No more tech errors, no more phones ringing in the background. Jeff, we're going to come to a rousing finish here over the final couple seconds. I'll give you the last word.
Well, the last word is that's Del Mar calling me for their morning line for the Pacific Classic, and I'm saying you're not drawing the damn race until 5, so give me a break here. I'm doing something else. But I'll get back and see where we've got a supplement in there. We got another horse who may not run. I mean, and it's Tuesday. I'm not supposed to be working today. With you. Anyway, we'll get that done. But yeah, no, I mean, we'll have all the races covered Saturday for this weekend on our handicapping show Friday. And first call, we'll deal with that. And I'm just, it's going through my mind is all the work you and I are going to be doing leading up on Breeders' Cup week. I can't wait to get started for that, but there's still lots of racing before then. And we'll be covering it all every week here, both on Tuesday and, of course, our handicapping show on Friday.
Good luck with the Kentucky Downs meet Thursday, Saturday, Sunday this week, 3 days of racing. Good luck with closing weekend to everybody at Saratoga. And of course, it's Labor Day weekend, so holiday extending all the way through Monday. And of course, the Pacific Classic coming up on Saturday at Del Mar. Jeff Siegel, get out of here. Go make the morning line for the Pacific Classic.
Okay.
We'll talk to everybody on Friday.